Hey, welcome to the Cheap Air Gunner channel. I'm Cherokee Steve, and I just wanted to show you the two guns, really, that have come out of the Crosman Custom Shop 2400 KT that I ordered. I converted, basically, the original one to a HPA version. That's the one. I bought the kit off of eBay. It's pumping out a lot of power. TKO muzzle brake. Shoots over 800 feet per second with 14 point, actually I tried a 14.5 grain RWS pellet and it shot over 800 feet per second on a full charge to 21 foot-pounds of energy at the muzzle. But because the guts of the gun were not being used, since the guts of the gun made up a CO2 carbine. My original philosophy was it was going to be real easy to take the grip frame off of the HPA version, the shoulder stock off of the HPA version, and put it back on to the CO2 aspects of the 2400. Well, then I just reasoned, why not look for some deals, cheap, inexpensive grip frame and another shoulder stock, and basically make two guns that take pieces of the 2400 KT CO2 Crosman Custom Shop gun that kind of got split off. This particular gun, which I custom painted the shoulder stock, did add a power adjuster. It's got the Crosman steel breech, of course, everything that would come from the custom shop. The CO2 valve / hammer tube, 18-inch barrel, the carbon fiber looking forearm, and a second-hand grip frame. I did go ahead and install a lighter spring for the trigger. I polished the barrel, and I have other plans for it as far as additional add-ons, but I am waiting on funds for that. But I thought I would show those first. So there's two carbines that came out of that one custom shop. I thought I would also take the opportunity to answer a couple of questions that I've gotten. Number one, back in the day, asked what did I use for a stencil for the shoulder stock that's on the CO2 version. And this is exactly the same technique that I used for my Hatsan Bully. I went ahead and used a lighter gray spray paint as a base. It was also a Rust-Oleum product, but lighter colored. I thought it would match. You know, as unfortunately, gray isn't gray, or isn't just gray when you're looking at spray paints. The one I used, the gray spray paint I used on the air tank and the little tiny forearm piece I ended up using on the HPA version, seemed to be quite a bit darker than the gray that Crosman uses for their carbon fiber stenciling, so to speak. So I tried a lighter shade of gray, which seems to be a lighter gray than what Crosman uses as their stenciling. But it still comes out looking pretty good, I thought. But as far as that stencil goes, This is it. It's a super old section of shirt that I cut a large section out of. I guess you would call this, back in the day, you know, a muscle shirt, so to speak. I don't know what you would call it. It's just a highly ventilated pullover that I had that seemed to have good-sized holes that would let paint through, and yet with it being as a fabric rather than something of a stiffer material like a rubbery material, this really folds, conforms to the shape of whatever you're painting a lot better. I think I mentioned before that I made an attempt with the HPA bottle to do a carbon fiber look by using a section of shelf liner such as this. It's really hard to get this wrapped tightly enough so that paint doesn't run underneath. Even with light coats of paint, I was having issues with it. That's the reason why I went ahead and just painted the entire bottle gray, because trying to use this as a stencil and put a gray pattern over black, this got smudged, paint ran underneath. It just didn't work out really well for me. There very well may be other types of shelf liner that would work better, but I could see this working out very well if you're painting something flat, but with anything with a type of curve to it, probably it didn't work for me. So the shirt's what I used is a stencil. The other question I wanted to answer, somebody in an older video posted a question about the dimensions of a piston. Now this particular piston is an extra one that I had. I'm going to take the measurements directly off of it, and hopefully that answers the question that a particular viewer had asked. Mainly, I believe they asked for the diameter of the piston. It has various diameters, but down here by the piston cup, it checks about 620 thousandths in diameter. The rest of it is smaller across the grooves that make up the long middle portion of the piston. That checks about 590 thousandths. So those are the diameters on it. I also wanted to throw in the overall length, and I'm only going, well, first I'm going to give you the overall length of the plastic part, not including the rubber piston cup that is attached on the end. That checks 2 inches, 560 thousandths in overall length. These I have seen sold with or without the piston cup on the end. So the cup is replaceable. If it gets worn or torn or damaged in some way, you can replace just the cup, from what I understand. I haven't had to do it on any of my guns, but Hopefully that answers some questions that a couple of viewers have asked.